We recently got blessed with a stealth drop of the Oblivion remaster. One of the things that I've been thinking about more recently during my short time playing through Oblivion and continuing to play through Oblivion is that I want more games like this remaster. I know this is a dangerous thing to say in a world where we hate remasters, but this is a different type of remaster. This is what happens when a games company focuses on making a remake of a great game that can be introduced fully to a new audience instead of being lost to the people who are happy to play it in its state that it was in 2006. Skyrim is well known for being the game that keeps getting re-released, and that is the sort of thing that we complain about when we talk about irritating remakes and remasters. Or at least some of the time, because I do think that most of their remakes are actually justified, but that's my hot take. I stand by the special edition's existence, but now that we've seen what Oblivion looks like with a mixture of the Unreal Engine and the Creation Engine, we now need a true remake, not just a remaster, but a true remake of Skyrim. I've attempted in the past to play Oblivion. I tried it a decade ago, I've tried it half a decade ago, I've tried it on Xbox 360, on my PC, but on every occasion I never found myself invested or clued in any way about what was going on and what I actually wanted to do. And the one thing that I could really pin this down to was age. While this isn't the case for every single person, but I do believe for most people, graphics do actually play a bigger role than most people are willing to admit. If it's not the game that you played growing up, then a lot of them feel very clunky. For example, I'm okay with people saying that Assassin's Creed 2 is hard to play and get into if you never played the original games, as they are definitely janky, but if you're like me and you played them 15 years ago, then you know that they're amazing and don't feel that dated. It's all about the game that you chose to play growing up, or the multitude of them that make them feel less awful than they do in the modern setting for most new players. The Oblivion remaster was the game that I was hoping for. I've always loved Skyrim, I love the lore of the Elder Scrolls universe, so all I've ever wanted to do was sink my teeth into yet another title. For so long I thought it would never happen, or at least until the 6th installment. However, thanks to both Bethesda and Virtuous, someone like me can finally play one of the older titles that many have been praising for decades. So let's talk about how this game is the pinnacle of remaking a game, why I want to see more titles like this, and how I think we're in for an amazing future if more companies take this approach. The first place to start is to compare a awful remake, and in this case it was definitely more of a remaster than anything else, and this is the GTA trilogy. When people found out about this, everyone was extremely hyped, expecting something akin to GTA 5's graphics, but with the older titles, even if it was going to look like GTA 5 from 2013. What we got, however, was a slight increase in graphics and the ability to play on the next-gen consoles. And then you add the fact that the price was so extortionate for something like it that it felt more like a cash grab. The Oblivion remaster, however, is a from-the-ground-up remake. The only things that really exist from the original game in terms of the back end is the scripts that make everything have the same charm and feel as the original. They made sure that the game played like the original, same style of combat, same artistic style, but with a modern day coat of paint. What it does is adds to its legacy, not milk its existence. When we look at remakes, we want to see genuine improvements that actually allow the existence of this remake to make sense. It's why something like the remake of The Last of Us or the special edition of Skyrim make complete sense. They were allowed to feel more up to date without losing that charm that exists for both titles. In the instance of Skyrim, it came with a higher bitrate, which meant that the game just looked visually better. Unlike its younger brother that has seen re-release after re-release, remake after remake, this game actually needed this. If you compare this side by side, the movement, the combat, the graphics, anything you see from the original game, you can understand why they needed to make a new release. Without it, it would have just been lost to time, and many people would have never given it a chance. Not lost to time in the Metal Gear 4 sort of way, where, you know, it's just doomed to emulation, or the PS3. It would have simply been lost due to people not wanting to pick something up and give it a go due to its age and the clunk that comes along with it. It allows the original experience to thrive with those modern feelings added in. With the original comparison of the GTA trilogy and the Oblivion remake, one thing I think is clear. The team, aka Virtuous, deeply cared, and so did Microsoft and Bethesda. I'm not saying the developers behind the GTA trilogy remaster didn't care, or care as much as Virtuous did, but at minimum, we know that Take-Two didn't really care that much at the same level as Microsoft and Bethesda clearly did for this title. For as much as I do love protecting Bethesda, as I do believe they get way too much hate online, I do think it is the case that this is more of Microsoft's doing. My quick reasoning for this is just Starfield. While it wasn't a game that many wanted to see, in terms of its polish and actual experience, it actually is very good. It's definitely the best Bethesda quality game that's ever been made. And we all know damn well that if it wasn't for Microsoft telling them that they had to make sure it was polished, you would have seen 50x the amount of bugs and glitches that we did on launch. They chose a good team, and that's really what's needed with a remake. Not just porting it and slightly improving the graphics, but actually having care and desire to bring an old product back into the marketplace with an updated fashion without stripping it away of its identity. The reaction to this remake shows something that I believe many don't want to believe. I've heard time and again how apparently people are sick and tired of remasters and remakes. We want new games, people say, but I think right now we're in a world where both can coexist happily and actually work out being the best thing for gaming. The showcase for Oblivion had around 1.3 million views within just the first few hours. It saw a massive amount of players come to the game, and many like me who had wanted to check it out for ages but left it in the dust due to its age actually found themselves loving its release. One big thing to remember is that we're talking about a game that also is on Game Pass, but fundamentally, seeing the Steam charts and the general conversation around it, it's definitely an eye-opener. What it has shown for me is that people online are just wrong. That's including me. I've probably said in previous videos about how in the industry they're just kind of reusing the same stuff, remastering games, or just making a part 2 of a game that didn't need to exist. However, I think this is now a prime time for remakes. The amount of classics that are technically retro now, that include the likes of Assassin's Creed 1, the Ezio trilogy, GTA 4, and Skyrim, and many more, are all games that could be next to get revived. Whether people like to admit it or not, there is a huge market that companies can and hopefully will capitalize on, as plenty of amazing games from the past could be remade for people now to actually enjoy and play for either their third, second, 10th, but hopefully for many, their first time. There are many titles that I would love to see remade, so I'll give you a short list of some. The first game that comes to mind is Metal Gear Sons of Liberty. Since we are seeing a remake of what looks like an astonishing version of Snake Eater in the second half of this year, I would love to see Konami greenlight the remake for both the first and second game in the Metal Gear Solid franchise. I would love to go back and play these games for the first time as they are, however, both have very dodgy controls, look extremely old, and overall have a lot of jank when it comes to the way that the games play and feel, since their release either was, in the year I was born or prior to that, so it does make it a kind of hard sell. Metal Gear could have a huge cultural revival if this was to happen. It's what made the port/remaster of the old game so popular, but imagine if it was a full-on remake that eventually leads to the 4th entry and suddenly you can play the most respectable stealth franchise, but in the most beautiful way with the way that Phantom Pain looks. And like we're seeing with Snake Eater, I would love to have the same option where you can go between the new and old camera angles. We then have the Assassin's Creed franchise, which we've already heard many rumors of different games, for example the Black Flag remake being in the works and possibly releasing at some point soon. However, what we also see and want deeply is Assassin's Creed 1 and the entirety of the Ezio collection remade. Imagine an Unreal Engine where we run around as Ezio. We're standing over Florence with Federico and the theme and title card appears. That moment would truly bring me goosebumps as it does for the original games, but at just a new high level that I never experienced before. And then also imagine how many more newer players would come to love and appreciate what the original games were. While these are games that many love, millions talk about, but there is still a section of the fan base that would rather just play the RPG games and view them as the only good Assassin's Creed titles, and with that they never come to love what is truly the older games and the experience of true Assassin's Creed that I've mentioned throughout many videos. And I understand why they may not have gone back and played them. As I've said earlier, I can definitely see where people come from about the jank and just the overall feel of many of the older titles. But then you have another game that I would love to see remade, and I would love to see Skyrim remade, unironically. I love vanilla Skyrim. I rarely play with mods, but I would love to see a remake that adds in a lot of what we love from the modded community, such as graphical enhancements, improvements to the UI, and much more. Literally do what they did for Oblivion, but for Skyrim, and the older games as well. Allow a team to work on versions of Morrowind, Daggerfall, and Arena. While I understand that these have procedural generation built in as well, it still will be something that would be cool to experience that we just never did beforehand. While keeping up with the fantasy theme, I would love to see a remake so that I could play The Witcher 1 and 2 for the first time, but in the graphical quality of the third game. Playing this would allow me to experience two games that many haven't actually played. Most have only loved and played the third installment. It would overcome that rather interesting and seriously dated look that the first and second game do have. I would love to see this happen as well, as I do own both of these titles, but I just never can get into them. Everything from the graphics to its gameplay just feels really hard to deal with. Then you have one of my favourite games from when I was a kid with Grand Theft Auto 4 and the DLC, specifically Ballad of Gay Tony. While the game does hold up enough for you to go back and play it now, it would just be lovely to see Rockstar give this game and the entries before it the appreciation and love that something like the Oblivion remake got. Just give us the Oblivion experience, but for all of your previous releases. That way, so many of us who have never played some of these classic titles, or just really want to replay these classic titles just updated, would be able to do so. Even if it was in the engine of GTA 5, that would be lovely. Especially the DLC. My love for that DLC and those characters as a whole are just above everything else I've ever played. That could be nostalgia or it could be facts. You let me know, but the Ballad of Gay Tony is definitely one of the best DLCs in gaming. The final two games that I would love to see remade would be Arkham Asylum and Red Dead Redemption. Both games, if remade, would allow us to experience the entries to some franchises that many of us believe are absolutely amazing. While similar to GTA 4 in that you can go back and play them as they are now, it will just be amazing to play Red Dead Redemption 1 as if you are playing RDR 2, an Asylum like it was Arkham Knight. Remakes and remasters aren't just about looks, but also about gameplay elements. What made the Oblivion remake so outstanding was the fact that it stayed loyal and true to the feel of the original, without being terrified to fix the necessary that they needed to change. With many of these games, you would be adding to what is already considered amazing. Some of the creatives behind these titles may still be working at some of these companies, some might just be the people who played them when they were first coming out, and being able to add to that experience just makes it even more richer. One of the biggest things we need to realize is that while remakes aren't the best thing if all the big studios make it their main focus, it's a great addition to have outside if the studio decides to work with it. It would be some of the easiest wins for gaming companies to do, just remake some of the most beloved games in the past, and then just add to the experience in ways that makes it more impressive. There will always be people who say, we don't need more remakes, we need new games. I think that though is a really bad take. It means that new players can't get to experience something in a way that many did back in the day. It's actually just a win-win for everyone involved if more amazing remakes come out like the Oblivion remaster. The main thing moving forward would be to make sure to only give the green light and our money to remakes that truly are amazing. Not just a GTA trilogy remaster, but an actual remake. Something like Snake Eater coming out later this year is an example of a top-notch looking remake that I can't wait to play. With that all being said, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, do subscribe to the channel. There is a Patreon as well linked down below. And with that all being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.